Many of you who came here tonight came under unusual circumstances. I'm not in government. I'm not a powerful person. I'm a citizen. I mean, just a normal, ordinary person.
Can you explain what you mean by unusual circumstances?
Unusual circumstances, you went through metal detectors to come to a debate in New York. I mean, talk about
That's because it takes one person to get through those metal detectors and blow us up. It doesn't mean the majority of people are terrorists.
Let me finish. The people that I am protected against, and you as an audience too, the individual who wants to kill me because I'm an apostate of Islam is inspired to do that from the scripture of Islam, the example of the Prophet Muhammad, the clergy that preached to him, and the reward he will get in the hereafter that is promised in the Quran. All of that is Islamic. The sooner you admit that,
I tell you what he's inspired
the sooner you admit that, the sooner I can get rid of my bodyguards.
He's inspired. I'll tell you what he's inspired by. Yeah?
Women that organize themselves in the various countries who are fighting for their rights, homosexuals who organize themselves, ex-Muslims. Majid, what is your status? Sort of almost ex-Muslims.
Excommunicated.
Almost ex-Muslims. So there are grassroots.
You're trying to get me killed or what?
Well, I mean, I'm really happy with your evolution. We debated 3 years ago, and what you said tonight and what you were saying 3 years ago are quite different. And it's an evolution that I'm happy with. But there are these. What you find in the Quran is expression after expression, verse after verse, and also in the Hadith, that women are subordinate to men, that they have a guardian, they need to have a guardian. Their testimony is worth half of that of men. They can only inherit half of what their brother inherits. When it comes to sexual offenses, women are the ones who get, in reality, where Sharia is implemented, and that is not only the practical side of Islam, but also the fellowship side of Islam, everywhere where Sharia is implemented. And there are more places in the world today where Sharia as a family law is implemented, and where it's not implemented on a political level. But in all of those places, you see a subjugation of women. You see honor killings. You see women who are denied education. If you look on a global level, the levels of illiteracy among women in the Middle East is appalling. That's not something that I'm telling you because I'm, whatever, I misunderstand Islam, but that is report after report. And the latest one is the United Nations UNDP Human Development Report that was first published in 2002, and that was again published in 2003, 2004. And if you follow these reports, this is empirics. This is not something that I'm imagining. The situation of women in the Middle East, in Muslim countries, is dire. And the principles that underlie it and the practices are Islamic. It's Sharia law in action. And the appalling, the nightmare is women who have fled those countries, who are now in the West, American citizens, European citizens, are subjected to parts of Sharia law. And Ziba, I think that denying that kind of, not just as a matter of debate, but I then try to question, where does your solidarity lie as a woman who grew up in a free country, a free woman, and as vocal as you are, shouldn't you be more solidar with them?
I am.
I want to agree. Thank you so much for that question. I completely agree with you that women in the Muslim world today, not all of them, but most of them, are denied education. The reasons that are given by those who do the denying are Islamic. They refer to the concept of guardianship. So the guardian has the authority to decide whether he sends a girl to school or not, and for how long she goes to school. The main reason in Muslim countries where girls are sent to school, Muslim communities where girls are sent to school, the main reason for pulling them out at the age of menstruation is the fear, the terror that they might lose their virginity. That modesty, sexual modesty that is demanded of girls, which at first it preceded Islam, it was a tribal Arab culture elevated to religion in Islam, where people find within the Quran that in the Hadith, that insistency on her virginity, on her being a virgin on the night of her wedding, that is one of the main reasons that is given. And if sexual emancipation were to occur within the Muslim world, and I want to challenge a guy like Majid Nawaz to take the forefront as a man by saying that you value a partner, a human being, more than her hymen, that would revolutionize Islam.
Trying to give me killed or what?
What I do is I listen to the men, mostly they are men. There are some women, mostly men, who invoke the founding documents of Islam and the founding father of Islam. And I look at what they say, and then I think, is that in the Quran? For instance, as you probably all know, I'm very much concerned about the subjection of women. So when I read a verse in the Quran that says that men are the maintainers of women and that husbands are allowed to hit their wives, I look at that verse in a way and I think you can read that in context, in its historical context, or you can apply it to our times. And the men who are doing that, who are applying all of these verses and the example of the Prophet Muhammad, not to the 7th century, but to our time, I find, and it's very unfortunate, but I find them to be far more influential in inspiring and mobilizing young men to see the religion of Islam the way they see it than the way either Imam Faisal says he sees it or Majid Nawaz says he sees it. And that's a fact. You know, you look at Al-Qaeda. Al-Qaeda does not use bin Laden to recruit new people. Al-Qaeda uses the Quran and the Prophet Muhammad to recruit young men. So that we have to stop this denial and at some point try and address the influence of these documents. And the way to do it is to, you know, to look at what is in there and not deny it. In the name of Allah and Muhammad, women are forbidden to drive. They're forbidden to own their own reproductive rights. They're forbidden to do anything unless they have permission from a male guardian. I disagree with my father that Islam is a religion of peace when I read these founding documents and I study the history and the example of the Prophet Muhammad. In there, I find an insistence of war and intolerance towards infidels, the hypocrites, those who associate God with others, homosexuals, women, and so on. What Islam needs is not a denial of these overwhelming and compelling facts. Islam needs a reformation. Muslim leaders who are serious about achieving true and enduring peace need to revise the Quran and the Hadith so that there is a consistency between what the peace-loving Muslims want and what their religion says.
I'm only coming to you as the moderator on this question because I'm looking for clarity, but you could do the same thing with the Old Testament.
Oh, you can, but the Christians have gone through that. The Christians have had their inquisitions and their crusades and the witch burnings, and they are past that, so that violence is now an issue of the fringe. Islam is right in the middle of it. When I call for a reformation, I am calling for an editing, a review of that, so that men who do not want to oppress women can find consistency within their scripture and the way they practice Islam. Right now, what you see when it comes to violence, whether it is against women or against religious minorities, or even, you know, Shias and Sunnis, what you see is there are peace-loving Muslims who are put in a position of cognitive dissonance. They want to live, and they do lead lives that are not consonant with what the Quran says and the example of the Prophet Muhammad. And I think the way forward is to stop the denial, the evasion, and to look at this and to modify it. We live in a country that allows us to do that. The United States is founded on innovation, and there's this enormous opportunity today for Muslims, as we look at the world that we were born in and the world we come from, there's this enormous opportunity here in the US to look at scripture in the eye and to innovate and to reform. And unless that is done, that dissonance is going to be there. And the people who invoke the verses and the practice of the prophet to justify the subjection of women and to justify violence will always be there. So my message is, right now there is an opportunity for reform.
It would take, girls would go to school, they would be independent, they would be able to articulate what their rights are, and more importantly, they could make Islam a religion of peace, because they would bring their boys up to be employable, to be educated, and to renounce suicide, killings, and martyrdom. Uneducated mothers are mothers whose children, whose boys, bad guys can take advantage of. Islam is not a religion of peace, and I woke up to the facts on the 11th of September 2001. Perhaps I should have woken up to the facts earlier, but I admit that I did that then at that time. Talking to people of my faith, Islam, and my friends, and discussing with them, I remember all kinds of fallacious arguments, but I remember one consistent thing, and that was to exempt Islam from any criticism. It was culture, it wasn't Islam. But a religion is born in a culture, and if that culture is not peaceful, then that religion is not peaceful. I was told it's politics. We've heard it tonight many times. It's not the religion. But Islam not only has a pious dimension, but it also has a political dimension, a complex system of laws, a political philosophy on how society should be organized. And if you look at that political system, it's anything but peaceful.